Welcome. Today we are immersing ourselves in a story of, well, glittering ambition and just spectacular, devastating fraud. We're setting the scene in the sun-drenched, high-stakes world of San Diego's elite business community. And for many years, one woman, Gina Champion-Cain, she was really the undisputed queen there.
Absolutely. The toast of the town, as they called her. Celebrated real estate mogul, successful restaurateur, even a formidable political player for a time.
But the reality behind that, high society success, it was basically a meticulously crafted mirage, built on, well, a foundation of lies.
Exactly. We are talking about the largest Ponzi scheme ever uncovered in San Diego history. I mean, the scale itself just immediately puts it in the national conversation.
And crucially, it was the single largest woman-run Ponzi scheme in American history.
Yeah.
That fact alone, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the level of access, the control, and frankly, the sheer nerve it must have required to pull off.
The cold numbers really reveal the catastrophic size of this operation. Champion-Cain raised approximately $400 million.
$400 million.
Yes, from hundreds of sophisticated investors, mind you, over 7 years. This was from 2012 right up to 2019.
Wow.
And when that illusion finally crumbled, the final estimate of victim losses, it exceeded $183 million.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's hundreds of millions just vaporized, used to fund a failing empire and, well, an incredibly extravagant life.
So what does it take? How does someone so publicly acclaimed with this incredibly carefully cultivated reputation, how do they construct and maintain such a vast private deception?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah. Our mission in this deep dive is to look directly into the source material. We're talking court documents, detailed accounts from her employees, and the really shocking admission she made in the book, I did it. We're going to track the whole arc, understand the charismatic character, the precise, desperate moment that sparked the crime, the ingenious network of lies she engineered, and then, of course, the spectacular crash of her financial house of cards.
And to really understand the depth of the betrayal, I think we first have to appreciate the height she actually achieved. So let's unpack that rise of Gina Champion-Cain, starting with her, as you said, carefully curated persona.
Yeah, when you look at Gina Champion-Cain's background, I mean, she was the definition of an overachiever, wasn't she?
Absolutely. This wasn't someone who just stumbled into things.
No, definitely not someone starting in a boiler room or anything like that. She was armed with serious credentials, the kind that command immediate respect in, pretty much any boardroom.
Right. Born in Michigan, 1965, she hit the ground running academically, got a double major in philosophy and political science from the University of Michigan back in '87.
Which is impressive enough.
But she didn't stop there. No, she piled on advanced professional degrees. She got an MBA from the University of San Diego and a Juris Doctor degree, a law degree from California Western School of Law.
Wow. So a JD MBA.
Exactly. And those degrees, you have to imagine, served as an immediate sort of psychological barrier for any potential skeptic, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to question someone with those kinds of credentials from top schools?
It gives instant credibility. And she was apparently following in her father's footsteps, focusing on asset management and real estate development starting way back in the late 1980s.
That's right. And her early career, you have to say, was genuinely successful. She redeveloped distressed assets, eventually joined the massive Irvine-based coal company.
Cool, yeah, big name.
Huge name. And she became instrumental there in reviving a specific problem child for them, which was the sprawling La Jolla Village Square retail center.
Okay, you know that place.
Yeah. Her work there demonstrated real, tangible financial acumen. And by 1997, she launched her own firm, tackling multi-million-dollar housing and commercial projects.
And these weren't just like anonymous office parks she was developing, right? Her developments were highly visible. They were landmarks almost.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about the Aqua Vista apartments, the Broadway lofts, and perhaps most famously, figuring out how to buy that massive, empty downtown Woolworth building. Remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. What did she do with it?
She successfully transformed it into the House of Blues in San Diego's Gaslamp Quarter.
Oh, that House of Blues. Okay.
Yeah, so she wasn't just building buildings. She was literally shaping the city's culture and its skyline.
That kind of visibility, it just catapults you beyond just business, doesn't it?
Totally. She became a community fixture, a political voice. Remember, in 2004, she actually attempted a mayoral run in San Diego.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it didn't go far, but it further cemented her reputation as this powerful civic leader.
And then came, well, the ultimate stamp of public approval, you could say. In 2006, the city council officially proclaimed June 28th as Gina Champion Cain Day.
Think about that. A day named in her honor by the city?
It's astonishing. That kind of civic recognition gives you an incredible level of credibility to leverage, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But the sources, especially the book, reveal that her success wasn't solely based on, brilliant financial modeling and smart deals.
Huh?
It was also based on an extremely calculated, almost theatrical approach to navigating the business world. A world which she openly viewed as, and these are her words, a heavily male chauvinist world.
Okay, so she saw the game.
She saw the game, and she intended to play it using, every tool at her disposal.
Right, and she had this stated goal, which sounds completely, cynical now, doesn't it?
It really does.
She wanted to pick the brains of the best in the business without them knowing they'd been picked. It's like she was extracting knowledge and connections under this guise of charm.
Precisely. And she developed some truly unique methods for disarming the powerful, older, mostly male mentors she targeted. The method was, simple, approachable, and apparently highly effective.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Literally. She talks about using chocolate chip cookies, cakes, bowls of M&Ms just to lure them in, make them drop their professional guard. It created this immediate perception of non-threatening, almost maternal warmth.
Wow, it's calculating.
Extremely. And she was chillingly self-aware of how she used her entire image to exploit these dynamics. There's a quote from the sources that is just stunning in its bluntness. She said this.
Okay.
The company was filled with nice white men, and let's face it, they were suckers for long legs and cookies, and I had both.
Whoa, okay.
That quote is just a masterclass in cynical strategy. It basically says she saw the sexism, acknowledged the power dynamic, and then intentionally weaponized traditional gender expectations to gain access and ultimately control.
She saw her interactions not as mentorship, but as
transactional espionage almost. Yeah.
She recognized that if she walked into a room, she'd get a second look because of her appearance and her confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And she captured that idea perfectly in some of her own very memorable sound bites.
Yeah, she often spoke in these really dramatic, almost fatalistic lines. It's quite theatrical. For example, she said, I was always going to get a second look, even if I didn't get a second chance.
That line suggests she knew she was constantly performing, right? Constantly creating this unforgettable presence, even if the underlying business stuff wasn't always pristine.
Exactly. And then there's the quote that when you read it now, it feels like a direct premonition of the whole $400 million Ponzi scheme. She described her career path like this.
Play good.
It was a raging river, I was in a raft, and frankly, I wasn't sure where the waterfall was.
Wow. Okay. So she kind of knew, or at least felt it was unstable.
It seems she possessed this inherent understanding that her trajectory, while dazzling on the outside, was fundamentally unstable. Driven by forces she wasn't fully controlling, perhaps, but which she maybe enjoyed writing.
Yeah.
It's the essence of her persona, really a workaholic, highly educated, possessing this theatrical flair to command a room, even if that flair was masking a massive, growing financial vulnerability.
And it's that vulnerability, isn't it? That hidden flaw in the foundation of the empire. That's what we have to look at next, because it's the tiny, almost desperate need that apparently started this entire massive scheme.
Right. So by the early 2010s, Champion Cain had successfully diversified beyond just real estate development. She did this through her company, American National Investments, or ANI.
Okay, ANI. Got it.
She expanded into hospitality, which meant opening that popular chain of restaurants under the Patio brand, right?
The Patio, yeah, those were everywhere for a while.
Exactly. Plus vacation rentals and even a beach apparel line called Love Surf Boutique.
Love Surf, right. I remember that too. So she was kind of becoming a lifestyle brand entrepreneur.
Sort of stretching herself thin, yeah. But these diversifications, they weren't proving profitable. Her businesses were rapidly becoming cash-strapped.
Okay. That's the vulnerability.
That's it. And the sources pinpoint the specific emotional and financial tipping point that kicked off the crime to a single, desperate night in January 2013.
Just one night.
The problem was acute. Her Pacific Beach restaurant, the Patio on Lamont, was just hemorrhaging cash, apparently constantly running at a loss. They needed capital immediately to complete critical renovation work and basically just keep the doors open.
And how much money are we talking about? Like, what did she need right then to trigger this whole thing?
It was a comparatively small sum, actually, considering where this ended up. She desperately needed $600,000.
600,000. That's it. To finish work on one struggling restaurant.
That was the immediate need. Yes, that was the trigger. That small, immediate financial gap led to the specific start of the Ponzi scheme, which is documented quite vividly in the book I Did It.
Okay.
She describes the moment. It's 11 p.m., a rainy Saturday night in January 2013. Her husband's asleep in their Mission Hills home. She's at the keyboard just desperately searching.
And what was she searching for? Not loan applications, I assume?
No. She said she pounded the keyboard looking for inactive liquor license numbers.
Inactive liquor licenses.
Because she wasn't looking for a legitimate bank loan or a capital partner. She was searching for the raw materials she needed to manufacture an investment product completely out of thin air.
Okay, so she needed a story.
Yeah.
A plausible investment thesis.
Exactly. The initial fraud needed a legitimate-sounding, kind of sophisticated investment thesis that promised high returns quickly. And this is where her sort of brilliance in niche knowledge came into play. She executed this scheme through her company, A&I.
So what was the core lie? How did she pitch it?
The core lie was ingenious because it was so specific to California, and it promised these incredibly high short-term returns. The promise was this. Investors' money would be used for high-interest, short-term bridge loans.
Okay.
We're talking annualized returns often between 15 and 20%.
Wow. Okay, that's high.
Very high. And these loans were supposedly going to business owners who were seeking to acquire California alcohol licenses.
Ah, the liquor licenses. Okay, I see the connections.
Right. The logic on paper sounded pretty sound. Obtaining a new liquor license in California, as you might know, can be a lengthy process. It often takes months, sometimes even years.
True. Lots of red tape.
Exactly. So business owners might need bridge financing to cover initial costs or operational expenses while they waited. This justified the exceptionally high interest rates she was promising. It was this perfect sort of self-contained business problem that only an insider like Champion Kane could seemingly solve.
It sounds specialized. Something an average investor wouldn't know the ins and outs of, making it harder to question.
Precisely. But the real clincher, the hook that made even sophisticated investors feel safe, was the promised security mechanism. And this is where the concept of the escrow layer comes in. It's absolutely crucial to the deception.
Escrow. Okay, that sounds safe. How did that supposedly work?
Well, she promised that the funds were held safely in an independent escrow account. And critically, these accounts were supposedly accessible only to the depositing investor or their intermediary.
So not accessible to her company, A&I.
Theoretically, no. This external validation made the investment seem really robust. It wasn't just cash sitting in her company's checking account. It was supposedly locked down by a major neutral third-party firm, like Chicago Title, for instance.
That promise of third-party security.
Yeah.
I can see how that would disarm skepticism. People believed they were protecting their principal against the high risk of the actual loan itself.
Exactly. But the reality, according to her later admissions, was devastatingly simple.
Let me guess.
Champion Kane never used the funds for these loans, not once.
So the whole thing.
The entire operation, the loans, the businesses supposedly needing the licenses, the specific escrow arrangement, it was all completely fabricated, a financial phantom. The money went immediately into propping up her own struggling businesses.
Wow. Okay. And those initial steps she took when she was pounding the keyboard that night. How did she make it look real to start, to minimize detection risk?
Well, when she was looking for those licenses, she wasn't looking in San Diego. That would be too easy to check.
Smart. Or devious, rather.
Devious, yes. She was strategically seeking expired or inactive Northern California liquor licenses.
Far away.
Exactly. If the investment pitch was tied to, say, Joe's Bar and Grill in Petaluma, why would a wealthy San Diego investor drive 6 hours north just to verify its status?
They wouldn't.
Right. She specifically sought locations, quote, far away enough that the investors weren't going to get in their cars and check out Joe's Bar and Grill in Petaluma.
So that geographic distance was step one in cementing the illusion. She was exploiting that natural tendency people have to trust what's written on paper, especially when the subject matter seems too distant or technical to easily bother verifying.
Absolutely. It was the first layer of a very elaborate deception.
Okay, so the lie is established. The fake investment thesis is out there. But now the machinery has to be maintained, right? And it has to grow. Because those interest payments she promised, 15% to 20% annualized. That's huge.
It's enormous. You need constant fresh capital just to keep up with those kinds of promised returns. And that's exactly how she and her co-conspirators managed to raise that staggering $400 million over 7 years.
So the engine itself, it was just a classic Ponzi structure.
Textbook Ponzi, yes. But operating at lightning speed because of those incredibly high promised returns, new investor funds came in.
And immediately went out.
Immediately used to pay the agreed-upon payments and those promised returns to earlier investors, which of course made the program look wildly successful.
Right, because people were getting their checks back on time, maybe even with big profits.
Exactly. Often just 90 days after their initial deposit, sometimes with significant profits. And this created a really powerful feedback loop.
Success fueled trust.
And trust fueled more money. People weren't just reinvesting their principal, they were often bringing in their friends, their family members, their business colleagues. It snowballed.
What's genuinely disturbing, though, reading the sources, is Champion Kane's own assessment of this whole ecosystem she created. It kind of speaks to an underlying contempt, doesn't it, for the very investors she was defrauding, many of whom were supposedly her friends.
It really does. She claimed, and this is a quote, the combined greed and stupidity of the participants across all levels was almost beyond belief.
Wow. Blaming the victims.
Essentially, yes. She even suggested that she was almost waiting for anyone to call me on it. It reveals a corrosive psychological state, I think. She wasn't just lying. She seems to have been judging and maybe even despising the very people who were funding her lavish life.
That's chilling. And to keep this whole thing running, the deception had to go much deeper than just verbal lies, right? There wasn't just the pitch.
Oh, much deeper. The sources reveal she was basically running an identity theft operation on the side, fabricating documents, forging signatures, and creating a shocking number of fake email accounts to impersonate people.
Fake emails?
Yeah.
Like who?
Well, the most notorious example is the creation of a completely fake escrow officer. They gave her a name, Wendy Reynolds.
Wendy Reynolds. She didn't exist.
Completely fabricated. But think about the effort this required. This wasn't just a passive lie. This non-existent person, Wendy, had a specific email address, and she, or rather Champion Kane, pretending to be her, was used to communicate directly with investors.
Wait, what?
Confirming that their massive sums were safely held in those supposedly secure escrow accounts.
Wow. So Wendy Reynolds was the ghost of security. She was the proof the system worked.
Exactly. She was the linchpin for convincing people their money was protected by that neutral third party. But Champion Kane couldn't possibly manage all of this alone. Not at this scale.
Right. She needed help, inside help.
Absolutely. She required the complicity of key figures, particularly Crispin Torres. He was the CFO of her company, American National Investments.
The CFO.
Yeah.
Okay, he'd know where the money was or wasn't?
He had full visibility into the finances. He knew that her other businesses, the patio restaurants, the Louvre Surf Boutique, those juice bars she had, he knew they weren't just struggling. He knew they were fundamentally insolvent, bleeding cash.
Stuart Oz wasn't just like turning a blind eye. He was actively involved.
Actively facilitating the crime. The sources confirm that he helped Champion Kane steal at least $60 million in investor funds.
$60 million. Just him.
At least that much, yeah. Just to meet payroll, pay vendors, cover the basic operating expenses for all those other struggling businesses. He was the vital pipeline, the mechanism necessary to keep the facade of solvency alive.
So he knew the money wasn't going to liquor license loans. It was going straight into the restaurants.
He absolutely knew. But perhaps the most brazen act of deception involved the bank accounts themselves. This was designed specifically to circumvent that promised escrow protection layer.
How do they manage that?
Torres established a bank account, but the name of the account was intentionally and deceptively similar to the official name of the major national escrow company they were pretending to use.
Ah, like Chicago Title Escrow Services versus Chicago Title Holding Services or something subtle like that.
Exactly, that kind of subtle, easily missed difference. This was the crucial financial switcheroo. Champion Kane would then trick investors into wiring their funds into this similar-sounding account.
And the investors thought.
They thought their money was safe, going to the real, reliable national escrow company. But in reality, the funds landed directly into an account that Champion Kane and Torres controlled completely.
Wow. That's incredibly deceptive.
And once the funds were safely deposited into this fake, fully accessible account, Torres would then fabricate receipts that look like they came from the official-sounding escrow company.
And send those to the investors.
Yeah. Send them right to the investors, providing hard copy proof of security. It was this tightly coordinated two-person operation designed to fool people, even sophisticated ones, who thought they were performing adequate due diligence by checking for escrow confirmation.
And this just leads back to her kind of dark humor and that crushing arrogance you mentioned. The sources capture her state of mind when investors would occasionally, inevitably, try to contact the supposed escrow company directly, right? Maybe raising questions.
You'd think that would cause panic, but no, she didn't show panic. She showed contempt. She actually emailed a co-conspirator instructing them on how to handle an investor inquiry. And I have to quote her exact instruction here. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
She told them to, quote, "Just say sure, whatever, now show me the money. Ha ha ha."
With the ha-ha? Seriously.
With the ha ha. It's just chilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests she was not only fully aware of the crime, but she was actually finding some kind of perverse joy in the ease with which she could manipulate and dismiss the victims, even in the act of maintaining the lie. It's the sound of a financial predator thoroughly enjoying the chase.
Yeah, enjoying seems like the right word. It's disturbing.
And that arrogance, it really fuels the conflicting motivations she talks about in the book, I Do It, because on one hand, she tries to paint herself as sort of an accidental criminal.
Oh, so?
She claimed she had, quote, "a very detailed and achievable exit strategy to eventually reimburse everyone."
Really? An exit strategy for a $400 million Ponzi scheme.
That's what she claimed. And she pointed to the fact that she was employing 800 people, providing health insurance, using that as sort of proof that her overall intent was benign, like she was trying to be a financial savior for her staff, maybe?
So the Ponzi scheme was just a temporary measure to save jobs? Is that the narrative?
That seems to be part of the narrative she constructed. But you have to ask, was this just rationalization after the fact, or did she truly believe she had some magical exit plan? Because it clashes so violently with her admission of superiority.
Right, the part where she said,
where she flatly stated she thought she could use it better than the investors. I mean, that's pure hubris.
yeah.
And the core driver, she ultimately admitted, was the high of being able to do so many good things for others, meaning employing people, running businesses, all of it fueled by money that simply wasn't hers.
That sounds like the addictive cycle of the Ponzi scheme operator we hear about. It's not just about greed for, fancy cars and houses, although there was that too.
Right. It's also about the feeling of being this financial god, the only person capable of keeping all the plates spinning. That feeling of power itself is highly addictive, particularly when it's funding a life she clearly felt entitled to maintain, no matter the cost.
Okay, so the engine's running full steam, pumping out $400 million in deposits over 7 years. That money had to go somewhere, right? To maintain the illusion and also, obviously, champion Kane's own required standard of living.
Absolutely. And we know tens of millions were embezzled directly for her lifestyle, and ironically also used for bailing out the very failing operations that necessitated the fraud in the first place. It was feeding itself, in a way.
Let's talk about the personal consumption first, because the details are pretty stark.
They are. Since 2012, she paid herself $2 million in cumulative salary.
Salary paid with investor money, essentially.
Essentially, yes. Just investor principal laundered through her businesses. She bought 3 homes and spent, quote, hundreds of thousands of dollars on jewelry and high-end automobiles. The lifestyle was undeniably opulent and very visible.
Right. But the spending that really seems to highlight her obsession with maintaining that elite status in San Diego society, that was the sports and entertainment stuff, wasn't it?
Exactly. These were the high-visibility spending items, the things meant to impress people, to socialize with the city's power brokers, keeping up appearances.
Like the baseball and football games.
Precisely. She spent over $640,000 for box seats at San Diego Padres games.
Wow. Over $500,000 on baseball tickets.
And over $200,000 for box seats at the San Diego Chargers games, back when they were still in San Diego.
So that's nearly $1 million just dedicated to elite sports access.
Yeah. And those box seats, I mean, they're essentially a networking tool in that world, aren't they?
Oh, definitely.
She was using stolen investor money to entertain the very people she was trying to impress. Or maybe even, subtly recruit as new victims down the line, all while maintaining this dazzling public facade of success that was entirely funded by deceit.
Meanwhile, the vast majority of the stolen funds, This is just going into the businesses, like bailouts.
Constant bailouts. The Ponzi scheme essentially became her private, multi-million-dollar ATM. It was constantly feeding her struggling entities, meeting payroll, paying expenses for the patio restaurant chain, the vacation rentals, that defunct Love Surf boutique. The very source of her public fame was also the source of her hidden financial ruin.
It's just unsustainable. How did the last 7 years?
It is remarkable. It survived the intense scrutiny, supposedly, of high net worth investors and their financial advisors for 7 whole years. But Champion Kane herself, in the book, admitted the inevitable truth to looming.
What did she say about the end?
She said that, quote, Inspector Clouseau could have figured it out.
Oh, okay.
And that by the end, she wanted the merry-go-round to stop, but no one seemed to know where the off switch was. It suggests this deep exhaustion, maybe, with the constant performance, the constant fear of discovery.
So how did it actually stop? Who flipped the switch?
The music finally stopped when she met with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, in August 2019. The pressure from that investigation must have been immediate and overwhelming.
Because she pleaded guilty almost instantly, didn't she?
Just 1 day later, confirmed the scale of the fraud right away.
But the collapse wasn't exactly a clean surrender, was it? There was more.
No, not at all. After learning about the federal investigations, not just the SEC, but the FBI too, she initiated this massive, desperate cover-up attempt, which led directly to the charge of obstruction of justice.
Okay, what did that involve? Shredding documents.
Oh, yes. It was methodical, frantic effort to destroy evidence. She instructed employees to shred paper records, destroy emails, delete electronic calendar entries, messages, trash files, anything that could link things together.
And the accounting records.
Altering accounting records specifically to hide the fact that investor funds were constantly being shoveled over to cover her massive personal expenses and prop up the failing businesses.
So she wasn't just hiding the crime. She was actively trying to erase all evidence that it ever existed.
Exactly. And she even tried one final, absolute catastrophic Hail Mary pass.
What was that?
Attempting to solicit a massive new investment. We're talking $150 million.
While under investigation. To do what?
Presumably in the desperate hope of somehow plugging the massive financial hole left by the Ponzi scheme, maybe paying off some investors to silence them, and hiding the existing scheme completely. It was pure desperation.
Unbelievable. Did any of that cover-up work?
Fortunately, no. Federal investigators were ahead of her. They managed to recover a significant volume of the evidence she tried to destroy, which really cemented that obstruction charge against her.
And the fallout for her actual business empire. The restaurants and shops.
Immediate and devastating. Because those operational businesses were entirely dependent on the constant infusion of stolen investor funds, nearly a dozen restaurants shut their doors almost instantly. The Patio on Goldfinch, Fireside by the Patio at Liberty Station, others in her portfolio just closed.
Overnight.
Because the ATM was shut off.
Precisely. The court-appointed receiver, Krista Freitag, stepped in to try and manage the wreckage of American National Investments. But she immediately reported a severe problem. An acute short-term cash shortage. There was simply no cash flow left, only debt.
Freitag noted in court filings that she would be, quote, forced to make decisions concerning the business operations and personnel that will be based solely on the need to immediately reduce expenses rather than a reasoned analysis.
So the businesses had to fail instantly, regardless of whether they might have had long-term potential if run properly, just because the illegal funding stopped.
That's the harsh reality. The Ponzi tap turned off and everything collapsed immediately.
And this led to more legal fights, right, over the remaining scraps.
Oh, yes. A very contentious legal battle erupted over the final bits of money. There was about $11 million held by the Chicago Title Company, somehow related to the scheme.
Okay.
And Con Restaurant Group, another big player in San Diego, temporarily took over the operation of what were considered the 4 strongest assets, including the original Patio on Lamont and the historic Saska's Steakhouse, just to keep them viable for eventual liquidation to get some money back for victims.
But the investors, the actual victims of the fraud who had put the money in, they weren't happy about that $11 million being used, were they?
They were absolutely furious. They argued, quite logically, that the receiver, Freitag, was proposing to do exactly what Champion Kane had done illegally. Take their money in which they held a security interest, and use it to fund the defendants' other failing businesses.
It's like the fraud continuing, just under court supervision.
That was their perspective. The illusion was completely gone, and now the fight was just over the last scraps of cash. It just showcased the complete and utter breakdown of financial trust at every single level.
So after the collapse, the cover-up attempt, the business closures, eventually the legal reckoning arrives, March 2021.
Yes. Champion Kane had already pleaded guilty to securities fraud, conspiracy, and that crucial obstruction of justice charge. The seriousness of it all, the scale, the duration, it warranted a severe punishment.
And she got one. 15 years in federal prison.
15 years. And it's significant, as you say, but also important to note, that was more than the 11 years the prosecutor's office had actually recommended.
Oh, really? Why did the judge go higher?
It seems the obstruction of justice, the attempt to cover everything up after the scheme collapsed, weighed very heavily against her in the judge's eyes. It showed a lack of remorse, perhaps, a continuing criminal mindset.
And the judge himself, U.S. District Judge Larry Allen Burns, he had some pretty strong words, didn't he?
He delivered a devastating judgment, called the crime monumental, said it demonstrated tremendous callousness and extreme avarice. It was clear the judge was looking beyond just the standard measures of financial fraud here.
What else stood out to me? It wasn't just about the money lost.
No, and this seems critical. What truly seemed to infuriate the court was the deep social betrayal involved. The judge specifically noted that the crime didn't just involve strangers seeking wealth. It involved many friends, family members, people deep inside her intimate network, people who trusted her implicitly because of that persona she had so carefully constructed over decades.
The personal betrayal aspect.
Exactly. He called this specific element of the crime the betrayal of personal trust, a behavior that, quote, goes beyond my imagination. It really emphasizes a core takeaway, I think, especially in a tight-knit community like San Diego's elite circles, that violation of social trust is often viewed as even more heinous than the simple financial theft itself.
What about her main accomplice, Crispin Torres, the CFO?
Right. Torres, the one who helped siphon off at least $60 million, fabricated all those documents, the vital second half of the Ponzi engine, really. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison.
4 years versus 15.
Yeah, the sentences clearly reflected the court's determination of the hierarchy of responsibility, who was the architect and who was the key facilitator.
And the financial consequences for Champion Kane, beyond prison.
Well, she was ordered to pay tens of millions of dollars in restitution to the victims. The court mandated nominal amounts quarterly while she's in custody, but upon release, the plan kicks in. Monthly restitution payments of at least $250 must begin.
So she'll be repaying her victims for decades after she gets out.
For the rest of her life, potentially, yes.
And where is she now? What's the current status?
She is currently serving her time at a federal prison camp in Northern California. Her scheduled release date, as of now, is January 2033.
Okay, 2033. That reflects a reduction from the original 15 years.
Yes, it reflects a reduction in her actual time in custody by over 3 years from the original sentence. That's likely due to various federal programs, good conduct time credits, things like that. It's fairly standard.
And we get a glimpse into her perspective now, from prison, through that book, I Did It, which came out after she was incarcerated.
We do. It's a fascinating, if obviously self-serving, glimpse. She does discuss the profound damage she caused, particularly acknowledging the impact on her most intimate relationship.
Her husband, Steve Kane.
Yes. He filed for divorce after the book was completed, and Champion Kane reflected on this separation in the book, saying quite simply, "I know that Steve feels betrayed."
Well, yeah, I imagine so. That seems like the ultimate personal cost of running a 7-year deception like this, the complete, irreversible erosion of trust in her closest personal relationship.
Absolutely. But interestingly, her life behind bars, according to the book's authors and reporting, shows that some of her leadership qualities, perhaps, remain intact.
How so? What's she doing in prison?
She's apparently quite active in teaching other inmates, including cooking classes. She's completed a paralegal certificate. And she has even become politically engaged, reportedly protesting issues like sexual abuse by guards within the prison system.
Oh, still finding ways to lead, even there.
It seems so. And the authors of the book, Barbara Bry and Neil Centuria, who knew her well and interviewed her extensively for those 40 hours, they still view her as, quote, quite charismatic.
Even now.
Even now. And they actually predict she might have a future as a motivational speaker when she's eventually released, perhaps around 2034.
A motivational speaker.
Yeah.
After orchestrating a $400 million Ponzi scheme.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But it suggests that even behind bars, her ability to lead, to persuade, perhaps to command attention, it remains intact. Which must be, well, quite a thought for her hundreds of victims.
Now, There's another layer to this story, specifically around the book itself. I did it. The sources reveal something quite personal and surprising about its creation, don't they?
They do. It adds a really unique layer of context. The book, as we mentioned, was based on 40 hours of interviews and email exchanges with Champion Kane while she was incarcerated.
And the authors, Barbara Bry and Neil Centuria, they made a deliberate choice about the voice, right?
Yes, they intentionally structured the book so it's almost entirely in Champion Kane's own voice. They wanted the reader to hear her unfiltered rationalizations, her explanations, her side of things, capturing what they called her masterclass in airing one's own dirty laundry.
Okay, but what gives this book, and particularly these authors, such a unique insight into the psychology of fraud? It's the backstory of one of the co-authors, isn't it, Neil Centuria?
Exactly. This is where the story takes a really sharp, unexpected, and very personal detour into the dark side of business ethics, let's say.
So Centuria, who's now a respected San Diego business columnist and author, he had his own brush with financial crime.
A very close brush, according to his own account, published alongside the book's release, way back in 1972.
1972, okay. What happened?
He was struggling at the time, just graduated from the American Film Institute, desperately needed money, laboring as an unemployed screenwriter, classic starving artist story.
Right.
And he ended up joining a phone bank operation, selling office supplies, specifically toner cartridges, over the phone. But he'd do it under a fake name.
A fake name? What was it?
Paul Beegler. A name he specifically chose, apparently, taken from the attorney Jimmy Stewart, played in the classic film Anatomy of a Murder.
Okay, Paul Beegler selling toner. Was it legitimate sales?
Not really. He describes it as textbook boiler room operations, high pressure, questionable tactics. His outfit would buy toner cartridges for maybe $11.
And sell them for?
Sell them for $80. Often pushing customers, typically banks and larger offices that wouldn't scrutinize small supply costs, into buying six-packs for nearly $500.
Oh, that's quite a markup.
He later described his operation as basically no different from the kind of high-pressure sales environments you see depicted in films like The Wolf of Wall Street.
And was he aware it was shady?
Oh, completely aware. He admitted years later, quote, "Did I know that we were involved in a shady and potentially illegal scheme? Yes. Did I continue to sell toner each morning? Yes."
Why? Just the money.
He says it was the pressure of needing money, the quick rewards. It just sort of normalized the illegality for him at the time.
And did he just stay a salesman?
No, his ambition grew quickly. He moved beyond just being a salesman and actually started his own toner selling operation. Rented a warehouse, installed cubicles covered in carpet to muffle the sound, had 25 phone lines buzzing.
So he built his own boiler room.
Pretty much. After about 2 years, he claims they had grown to be the second largest telephone sales shop of its kind on the entire West Coast. He was flying high, financially successful, and operating completely outside the bounds of legality.
Okay, so where's the connection to Champion Kane? How did his story end?
Well, just like Champion Kane's moment in 2019 when the SEC came knocking, Centuria's music stopped just as abruptly. He received a letter. On the official letterhead of some federal agency, he said he couldn't even recall which one years later. But the letter mentioned two words that stuck: mail fraud and felony.
Oof, okay.
He said the rest of the letter was just a blur of sheer panic and fear.
So what did he do?
In a scene that he himself described as right out of The Sting, he and his partner completely dismantled the entire operation, like immediately. Ripped out the cubicles, tore out the phones, hired a cleanup crew. The whole thing vanished in 5 days flat.
Wow. So he got out just in time. No charges.
Apparently not. He got out just in time. He reflected later that he felt he had stood on the abyss and peeked over the edge, realizing he had fundamentally dodged a bullet that could have completely derailed his life forever.
And he shared the story publicly in connection with the Champion Kane book.
Yes, he shared this intensely personal anecdote precisely because of its thematic resonance with Gina Champion Kane's story. He wrote, "It shows how easy it is to slip into the dark side."
It really does. That pressure, that rationalization.
And his universal lesson, drawn directly from his own near catastrophe, applies so directly to Champion Kane and, frankly, almost every major felon in history. Like lots of felons, he wrote, their last thought before pulling the trigger is always, "I won't get caught."
That belief in your own cleverness.
Oh.
That you can outsmart the system.
Exactly. It provides this really deep, dark mirror, doesn't it? You have someone like Champion Kane, who had reached the very top of San Diego society, armed with MBAs and JDs. And then you have someone like Centuria in 1972, just starting out struggling as an unemployed screenwriter.
And both found themselves standing on that exact same terrifying edge of financial illegality.
Both gambling everything on that core conviction that they were smarter than the system and they wouldn't get caught. It's a fascinating parallel. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So we've tracked Gina Champion-Cain all the way from being this Michigan overachiever with a double major through the glittering heights of San Diego society where she mastered that cynical game of long legs and cookies.
Right.
All the way to that desperate Saturday night back in 2013 when she first Googled an inactive liquor license, kicking off this unbelievable 7-year chain reaction of lies.
It's quite a trajectory. The story isn't just about the numbers, is it? Not just the $400 million raised or the $183 million lost, or even the boxes of evidence she frantically tried to shred at the end.
No, it feels like it's more about how powerful charisma, when it's combined with unchecked arrogance and maybe the enabling comfort of high status, how that can create this echo chamber of lies that somehow lasts for 7 years.
Yeah. She weaponized trust, used her public persona as this perfect shield for massive private fraud, and ultimately it led to that 15-year sentence and the complete collapse of her personal life or marriage.
And the judge in her case specifically highlighted that betrayal behavior, didn't he? Saying it went beyond his imagination, especially noting that many of her victims were also her close friends.
That betrayal aspect seemed key. And then we discussed how the co-author of her own book, Neil Centuria, had his own near-death experience with financial crime decades earlier, reinforcing just how thin, how fragile that line can be between legitimate ambition and outright fraud.
So when you look at the sheer scale of the financial ruin here, and you combine that with the complete catastrophic destruction of personal relationships, it really does raise a critical question, doesn't it? Something that should probably stick with you long after this deep dive ends, especially when we think about crimes built on deception, like the one Champion-Cain executed so effectively for so long.
Right. The sources make it clear that the victims, yes, they were seeking wealth, high returns, and Champion-Cain, she was seeking status and solvency for her businesses. But if the judge himself stresses the betrayal of friends, the violation of those social contracts, as the most heinous element, it makes you wonder, what is the true measurable currency of a Ponzi scheme like this?
Is it just the money? The millions stolen?
Or is it something else? Is it the complete catastrophic destruction of personal relationships? Is it the absolute abolition of that foundational trust that society and commerce, frankly, is supposed to be built upon? What's the real cost?